From the Arizona Daily Star and Tucson.com, this is the Wildcast.
Appreciate you for listening to the latest episode of the Wildcast podcast. I'm Justin Spears, and I'm joined by Michael Lev. We're going to be talking a very sensitive subject, and definitely something that has been discussed over the last week or so in regards to Arizona Wildcats football, and more specifically Arizona quarterback Jayden de Laura. That's going to be the focus of this podcast. So we appreciate everyone for listening, and we're going to have a very interesting discussion about Arizona's star quarterback. Before we get into the discussion, I want to remind everyone that the Wildcast can be located wherever you get your podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and comment. Those ratings and reviews help us out on those platforms. Also, please be sure to download the free Wildcaster app today. Is all of the content on it free? No, some stories are subscriber only. You can subscribe on Tucson.com and also the Wildcast podcast. But yeah, the Wildcast itself, or the Wildcaster, I should say, is free, and you can download that off the App Store and Google Play. So, Lev, lots to unpack here when it comes to the Jayden de Laura case, and we assume that all of our listeners tuning in know all of the details, but we're pretty much going to rehash a lot of stuff. So here's what we know. Arizona star quarterback Jayden de Laura was involved in a sexual assault case in high school in 2018 when he was a star quarterback at St. Louis School in Honolulu. Him, along with who is now the starting safety for the Wisconsin Badgers, Kamoi Latu, they were accused of raping a girl after a high school football game in 2018. A civil case was started in 2021, and recently it has reached a settlement. So those are some of the details that we know. We've looked over the court documents, or the plaintiff's claim in the civil case, and some of the accusations, or what they're accusing Jayden and Kamoi of, are very heinous. Now, we don't know every single detail because the criminal case was handled at the juvenile level, and those are sealed, so we don't have the text messages that were exchanged between Jayden and the girl. But what we do know is that their punishment, they didn't receive any jail time or anything like that. Their punishment was to write an apology letter to the girl. Now, as we all know, the civil case has been filed in 2021, which has recently been settled. And in the state of Hawaii, I think this case, it's anywhere from $40,000 and above. That's the settlement agreement, or the money that they're after. So these are just some of the basic details that we know about Jayden de Laura's case. Arizona has released a statement. They did so last Friday, saying that Jayden de Laura's status remains unchanged and that he will be the quarterback of the Arizona Wildcats in this upcoming season. So, Lev, this puts Arizona in a very interesting case. Are there any details that I might have missed that are very important in your opinion?
Well, I mean, look, this is an odd situation in a lot of ways. Starting with just the way that this came out. Right? We're all kind of sitting there doing whatever we're doing on Wednesday night, and this report comes out of Hawaii that this civil suit exists, and Jayden de Laura is named in it. And all our kind of initial headlines where he settles this civil suit involving a sexual assault, and you could make the argument that him settling it is not even the story. The story is that this happened in the first place. Nobody outside of a small circle knew of the existence of this alleged crime. So that's kind of the jumping off point. We scrambled as fast and as hard as we could on Wednesday night to obtain the actual documents and pour through them and put together a story. And it's a very interesting and educational experience for me.
Me too.
And for you too, because these are just the types of stories that we don't deal with on an everyday basis. Thank goodness. We had help from our news editors, which was great. I think some important things to note. Number one, almost all the information that's coming out about this case is coming from the plaintiff side of things. Okay. Yeah. As you mentioned, we do not have access to the actual court case from when they were all minors because, it was adjudicated in juvenile court and those records are sealed. Okay. So it is in some ways, the perspective of one side. There have been comments made by Latu's lawyer. But generally, they've been more about the resolution of the case, not the case itself. There is one document in which Latu's lawyers present a different version of events. There's no such document, at least that we could find, in which de Laura's lawyers do the same. So there hasn't really been a denial from his side of things. So it's just important, I think, that you look at the whole situation through that lens, right? That it is, we're getting it from one side. I'm not saying that one side is more believable than the other. That's just the information that we have available to us, right?
Yep.
Okay. So the story comes out. We published our story, I think, late morning on Thursday because, this was a situation where we wanted to make sure we had it right. Not that we had it first. I mean, it was Hawaii News Now had it first.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that race was already decided. And then it became, a question of what is the U of A going to do about this, right? And I think that's the central question still, even though they've made a decision. Did they make the right decision? What is the right decision? What are all the factors here? And, I don't think it's a black and white type of issue at all. I think there's a lot of gray area. I don't know what the right thing to do is, but we're going to discuss both sides of it over the course of this podcast and see what we can come up with. I'd say my initial reaction, just my gut reaction to the decision that they made, was that it was kind of disappointing on some level. I felt like I kind of wanted more, and perhaps legally they couldn't say any more than what they said. I just, since Jedd Fisch has been here, he's been this promoter of Arizona football, and he has built up a lot of goodwill, right? He's promoted the idea of family. It's personal, right? Come here, you're going to be treated right. My kids are around all the time. My wife's around all the time. Other coaches' families are around all the time. Like, you're going to come over to my house. All of these things. So he's built up all this goodwill. I felt like the resolution or their decision in this matter eroded some of that goodwill. Not all of it, but at least some of it. And that's kind of, that's the main reason that I found the outcome to be disappointing.
Yeah. Well, I think it was, again, like you said, it was very vague, the response. And it was a couple of days after the first report came out. Like, I was just expecting something that Thursday. I was expecting them to be on top of this, Lev, because if you look at the statement, they knew about this going into last season.
Oh, they said they knew. They said, just to be clear, they said in their statement that they learned of this situation in fall of 2022, right? I think people need to understand the timeline here. The civil suit came out in December of 2021, December 2nd, right? 3 years after, according to the court documents, the girl went to the police for the first time in December of 2018. Okay. We do not know during that 3-year gap when the defendants pleaded guilty. It says in the court documents that they did. We have no reason to believe that they didn't. The lawyer for Latu even acknowledged that happened, although he said that it was not an admission of guilt. It was kind of just the cleanest, way to kind of extricate all parties from the whole situation.
Let's say if they were actually tried, would that affect their position at Washington State? Because Kamui Latu ended up playing at Utah, is now at Wisconsin.
If there had been Michael Green, the attorney for Latu, his whole point was if this had gone to trial, it would have dragged on for years and years,
yeah.
And it would have impacted their college careers. He was like, this created closure for the girl. It created closure for the boys. You know, it was the best to just move on. So, okay. So December 2021 is when the civil suit comes out. A few days later, not long after, maybe a month or so after, Jayden de Laura goes into the transfer portal, right? 3 days later, he lands at Arizona. So this is January of 2022. Were questions asked at that time? You know, why did it take them until fall of 2022 to find out what happened? And is it a coincidence that Wisconsin, in their statement, basically said the same thing? They had the same timeline. Oh, we found out in fall of 2022.
Yeah.
I mean, does that pass the smell test to you?
Well, Jayden transferred in the spring, transferred in January, right?
Okay, yeah.
Played in spring ball. So you're telling me that Arizona didn't know about this in the spring?
I don't know. It's possible.
And that's the questions that we have to ask Jeb the next time we see him.
And he's probably not going to answer any of them because it'll be very similar, I think, to the Sean Miller situation, where every question regarding the FBI case is just
refer to my statement.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly right. So I'm not surprised that it took them 2 days because they kind of slow play a lot of these things. And they want to be very careful in how they word all of this stuff. So that's one of the kind of outstanding questions that we still have. Like, when did they know? And they said they knew in fall. Do you believe them? I mean, it's definitely possible that they didn't know, and the actual case itself was sealed, right? And I think that the lawyers for de Laura and Latu were kind of hopeful that it would never come out. But then the civil suit happened.
Yeah.
And it did come out. And that civil suit, all of that stuff was available to the public if you really wanted to dig in and look into it as early as December of 2021. So, however you define the fall of 2022, it is several months later before Arizona unearthed that information. And it begs the question, like, in the transfer portal era, Justin, like, do you have enough time to do all the digging and the research that you need to do, that you do with high school players?
It depends on who you talk to, because a guy who I've spoken to who's really embedded in the recruiting community, he said, well, transfers, they have red flags. They come with baggage. You have a lot of questions. Why are you transferring? What's going on in your background? How are things at home? What's going on, back home? So you have a lot of questions. There are a lot of red flags, but you actually spoke to Adam Gorney, who he said that, well, no, that transfers don't necessarily get like the true FBI job background check, which maybe you should. I mean, if these students are benefiting off their name, image, and likeness, they're making money at the school, maybe you should start vetting them and screening them as if they are going to be employees. But in today's world where you have all these recruiting visits, you have people coming to your campus left and right, you're hosting guys, you can't necessarily have the time and energy and the resources to go through every single player and screen them as if they're about to take a job rather than simply join a football team.
When you recruit a high school player, most cases, you've probably heard about or discovered this player when they're freshman or sophomore, right? You've got the benefit of time before they actually sign that document.
Talk to family,
talk to counselors, teachers, janitors, like coaches, anyone and everyone around them. I mean, sometimes you have years you can do this, right? Jayden de Laura went into the transfer portal on January 7th, and he signed with Arizona on January 10th. What realistically can you do in that time? Now, what you could do is you could look through the court system in Hawaii and see if anything comes up. I mean, it is a skill that not everybody has, and it wasn't easy to navigate all of that and figure out exactly how to find these documents. But
and if I'm not mistaken, I think Jayden de Laura was contacted by Arizona like minutes upon entering the transfer.
Okay, and why is that?
Because he's a great player.
Yeah,
Good quarterback.
And they had like the worst passing offense in the nation the previous year.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they were desperate. He's super talented. So of course you're gonna like look before you leap in a situation like that, right? Which I think is a good segue to another point that's worth discussing here. Is there a double standard when it comes to star players? And it's kind of a rhetorical question because of course there is, right? I don't think there's any doubt that if the exact same set of circumstances had happened regarding a second string safety, that player probably wouldn't be with Arizona football anymore. Do you agree?
I would agree. But then I also think legally, let's say Arizona knew about this and then you cut the guy because the public knows about it. I don't know. My cohort on Spears and Ali on ESPN Tucson knows probably more about this than I. But, I mean, you cut the guy because of what happened in high school. Like, let's say the backup safety for Arizona. Similar situation as Jayden. Arizona knew about this, but now that the public knows about it, you then cut the guy loose. Can't he just turn around and find a way to sue the school? Because now you're costing him his future. He can't transfer to other schools. You're probably costing him his future playing professionally. I mean, he did that himself by putting himself in that situation. Like, let's be real here. But knowing the background of all of this, if Arizona knew about this and cut the guy loose, can't you just turn around and sue the hell out of the university?
He could. I don't know if he'd have as good an argument as the starting quarterback would as far as, future earnings go, right? I mean, he could, of course, say you besmirch my reputation, all of these types of things. I guarantee you it would have been handled differently. And maybe it wouldn't have been quite as public a spectacle. Maybe the player just would have magically disappeared from the roster.
Are we having a whole podcast
a few days later?
about
Probably
this,
not. No. Although,
it changes
okay.
things when you're the quarterback,
It
especially
does.
a really good quarterback.
Although, okay, to be fair, I mean, I think the focus right now is more on the decision that was made by the school and the decision that Jedd Fisch was involved in to whatever degree he was involved in.
Yeah.
And does that change the way people perceive him and his program moving forward? And it certainly does to some degree. I don't know if people are going to not go to games because of this, if they're going to protest outside of the stadium. I think any of those things are possible. It's what I talked about before. It's goodwill. And he's built up so much goodwill, and he's tried so hard to create this kind of sense of community, right? And we need to pack the stadium. Hey, if the attendance is a little disappointing at the start of the year, you might want to look at the decision that you made regarding this whole situation. And it might not be possible to draw a direct line, like a cause and effect, but it could be a factor.
This is not sourced by any means. This is kind of my own speculation and trying to, trying to connect the dots here. I think they knew about it in the spring. I really did. Because if you didn't know about this and Jayden kind of surprised you with this and blindsided you, he has given you every reason to let him go. He was not honest. And on top of that, he did something that was just awful. And he pled guilty to it. Now, again, I know the Kamui Latu's lawyer said, pleading guilty does not necessarily mean an admission of guilt. But if Jayden lied to you and you didn't know about this, and I don't know if like Jayden lying is the right word because, they didn't ask him about it. And Jayden's probably like, well, if they're not going to ask, I'm not going to tell them. I'm just going to kind of just go about my business. But don't you feel like that's important to tell your coach, hey, I got this situation that might be an issue here moving forward. And if they knew about it, they're going to keep him. And that's exactly what they did. And that's why I think when Jayden de Laura transferred to Arizona, this was brought up to their attention. Now, where Arizona went wrong is that they didn't really seem to have like a game plan just in case this got out. because it took them 2 whole days for them to release a statement. And I figured if things were to get out, they would have had a game plan. They would have been on it right from the get-go. But they weren't. And this is where I kind of shame Arizona in some way, because they didn't prepare themselves. And when it all hit the fan, they kind of had like a deer in the headlights look and gave out a very vague statement. Nothing from Jed, nothing from Dave Hickey, nothing from President Robbins, nothing from Jayden. It was just a statement from the Arizona Athletic Department. The status of Jayden de Laura remains unchanged, and that is that. And you're going to allow people, Arizona fans in particular, to stew on that and sit with that for
months,
4 months until the season opener. Like you said, Lev, like it doesn't ruin the Jed Fish era, but I could definitely see why you can make the argument of him losing a little bit of goodwill. It
puts a stain on it, to be sure, and it's a stain that's not that easy to clean.
Yeah. It's tough, man. It really is. And listen, I get why Arizona stuck with him, because if you knew about this and then you let him go, you look even worse. So no matter what, like, this is a lose-lose situation. You cannot win in this situation, because there are some people who feel one way, there are other people who feel another way. And regardless, you're going to piss off a lot of people.
You are. And look, it's only anecdotal, but I've definitely heard from some people, a handful of people, that they're mad about this and they're not going to go to games, or they're not going to watch Arizona football, as long as he remains on the team. And how much do you factor in sort of the court of public opinion in this whole thing? Like, how much do you factor in kind of the PR angle of it, against, like, what is the right thing to do? And again, going back to the beginning, I don't think it's that clear it's not crystal clear what the right thing to do is.
Yeah.
You can make an argument both ways. You can make an argument that, hey, this is awful. There's no tolerance for this. He shouldn't be on the team. We shouldn't have anyone who's ever done this sort of thing at any point in their lives as a part of our football program. There's another side that says this all happened when he was a minor. We don't know both sides, or at least the public doesn't know both sides of the story. It was settled, resolved. He's done nothing wrong since he's been here, right? He hasn't been involved in any trouble whatsoever off the field since he's been at Arizona. So what grounds do we have? As you hinted at, like, the only thing that's changed is that it's become public, right? They knew about it at some point. They knew about it in the fall,
yeah,
and they didn't do anything about it then. So why would they do anything about it now?
Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm surprised they didn't get out in front of it as quickly as they did. They didn't have a game plan. And, I think, Jayden is a very talented quarterback. The conversations that we've had with him have all been pleasant, in my opinion. Like, I think if you exclude this situation, I would think Jayden de Laura is a good guy. Now, maybe he needs to be guided in a certain direction, and I think Arizona's coaching staff are the right people to do that. But, man, it's just such a difficult situation to be a part of. And again, like, I'm very surprised that Arizona didn't have a game plan. Jayden didn't really have a game plan. I was thinking about, if it doesn't look good regardless, but if you're Jayden, you're here in Tucson, Arizona. Why don't you dedicate some of your NIL money to a women's group, or take classes, do something to show that you are very remorseful. And to me, I don't get that vibe right now. Now, Jayden could be doing a lot of things behind the scenes that we just don't know about, and I'm hoping that's the case, because I think he's a good quarterback and has a future if he keeps his head on straight. But this situation is a big stain, and to me, I'm very kind of disappointed, and it doesn't seem like Arizona was on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of where my disappointment stems from, is it felt like there needed to be more. And again, I don't know, maybe legally they can't say all of the steps that they're taking. I just was kind of hoping that they would, I thought Jed would want to get out front in that way, and be proactive about it instead of reactive. Like you said, they had plenty of time. If they knew about this in fall, they had plenty of time to put together, as you put it, a game plan. And it seemed like they were as surprised about this as we were, right? Based on the fact it took basically 2.5 days to come out with kind of a tepid statement. So moving forward, Jayden's still with the team. We have no reason to believe that anything in that regard is going to change unless something else comes out, which is always possible, right? Now everyone's kind of on the lookout, I think, for any little thing. And, when Jed makes his next public appearance, whether that's at Pac-12 Media Day in Vegas in July or sometime before then, I mean, what are the first half a dozen questions going to be about? It's certainly not going to be the narrative that he wants to tell.
Year 3, liftoff for the program.
Yeah, it's not going to be about any of that stuff. It's going to be all about this. And, I mean, that's tough. That's really tough. I can't be part of, the plan. And I don't know. Jed Fish he's a great salesman. I don't think he can talk his way out of this one without it kind of looking bad.
He's got lawyer experience, so I don't know. Him having a law background, him being the kind of personable schmoozer kind of guy, I don't know. Jed has surprised us a lot of times. I think maybe he could do something.
No, he has. But this is, I don't know. This is a big deal. Okay, it's a big deal. Even though there's been sort of no status change. With Jayden, I think there is a status change regarding like the way that people view the program or talking about the program right now. Maybe that'll fade over time, but like Jayden de Laura's status remains unchanged, but the perception of the program is not unchanged. It is altered.
But there eventually we are going to get to a point in the season where, let's say, Arizona's winning football games. Jayden de Laura looks like a great quarterback. Objectively, as reporters covering this team, we're going to be talking about, Jayden's playing great right now. And there's never going to be, there's always going to be that cloud, that kind of elephant in the room, like, oh man, can't believe what happened with Jayden de Laura this offseason. But in the middle of the season, there's going to be a point in time where we're not writing about this part of Jayden de Laura. It's going to be strictly his on-field play. And that's just what we're going to have to do.
Yeah, it will, and like I said, unless he gets in trouble again in some form or fashion, it'll kind of fade over time. It's not like when you write your game story about, the game at Mississippi State in week 2 or week 3, whenever that is. It's not like you're going to, every time you mention Jayden de Laura, you're not going to mention this.
Like Jayden de Laura.
In stories about football.
Who was accused of sexual assault, completed 19 of 34 passes.
That is not, that's not a sentence that you would write. But, like I said, it's not going to just fade away into oblivion. Because the next time he makes any sort of media appearance, he being Jed Fish, he's going to get grilled about this, and it's going to take the narrative in a direction that he doesn't want it to go. Yep. Also, Jayden de Laura has been kind of like the spokesman for the offense since he's been here. Like, he talked a ton last season, right? He did midweek. He did our press conferences during the middle of the week a bunch of times. Almost every single game, win or lose, he was up there, which is great. Hey, that's the accountability that we respect and look for in a quarterback and in any player, that you kind of face the music, win or lose. Yeah. Are they going to just throw him out there to the media now, or are they going to be super guarded? Do you think he's going to be one of Arizona's player reps at Media Day? Like, I don't think so.
Michael Wiley.
Yeah, it'll be someone like Michael Wiley. Yes, exactly. God, if you had to pick a defensive player, who would you even pick? Are there any what you'd call like veteran defensive players?
Yeah, I would say Jacob Manu. But he's not a veteran.
He played half a season.
I know, but he's considered a veteran. They have so many newcomers on that side of the ball.
Yeah, they have. I don't think you have to take an offense and a defense anymore. I think it's just two players.
Just two guys.
Yeah. So it could be a T-Mac. It could even be Jordan Morgan.
Yeah.
Conceivably.
Yeah.
Jacob Cowing.
Yeah.
There's a possibility. But okay. But then those guys are going to be asked, too, about...
Hey, Jacob, you're a quarterback, the guy that you catch passes from.
Yeah. And they'll be trained in how to answer those questions. But again, when you're in a situation like Arizona where you're on the come up and you're trying to build your program into something substantial and well attended, and going to bowl games and all the good vibes, just think about the spring game. It's fun, right? Festive. It's a party. Everyone had a great time. And then a few weeks later, thud, this lands. It just changes. It changes the perception of the program, at least in the short term.
Yeah.
And as I said at the beginning, I find that the outcome of all this to be disappointing.
Absolutely.
Because of that.
Lots of questions still need to be answered for Jayden de Laura and the Arizona football program. We'll see when those questions will be answered, whether it's soon or July 21st in Las Vegas for Pac-12 Media Day. All right, that'll do it for this episode of the Wildcast podcast. Please subscribe, rate, and review the Wildcast wherever you get your podcast. But the podcast ain't over. As a matter of fact, coming up next, we have Clancy Shields, Arizona men's tennis coach, who joined me on ESPN Tucson earlier this week on Spears and Ali, weekday mornings from 7 to 9 a.m., talking about the Wildcats making the Sweet 16.
So the Arizona men's tennis team, they have to play the Triple H theme song, right? When they walk out before taking on Boise State in Tucson for the first round of the NCAA Tournament Regional. Like, that's some intense music right there. And it's going to be intense this weekend in Tucson when the Arizona men's tennis team hosts Boise State in the first round of the NCAA Tournament. Here to talk about this awesome matchup is our good buddy and head coach of the Wildcats, Clancy Shields. Coach, good morning to you. How's it going?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
So, Arizona hosting the NCAA tournament for the first time in program history. When you hear that, what goes through your mind, Coach?
Yeah, I mean, that's something that you dreamed about when you took this job, is that maybe one day we could host this tournament, the NCAA championship here. And then, when it happened yesterday, then you start visualizing, can we have 1,000+ people in the stands and going crazy and making this an incredible experience for our student athletes. But it is just, I really thought we were going to get it last year. It was a kick in the gut when we were, ranked 16 in the country and they didn't give it to us. And then this year to get it was, a little bit of a relief, but also exciting because it's been, really 5 months of hard work by our guys to get to this point.
Why do you think this year you guys earned the right to host the NCAA tournament as opposed to last year? What do you think was the biggest difference about your club this season?
Well, I think we were consistent all year long. I mean, I think we're one of the only teams that has – I think we have 16 or 17 wins over top 75 teams. We had 12 wins over top 50 teams. I mean, the Pac-12 is sending 7 teams to the NCAA tournament. We only have 9 men's teams. So I think our league was strong. I think we had a really good resume. We went on the road and had some good wins. And, I think the people on the committee recognize that we have an elite squad, and to come in as the 14th seed is a really cool thing. And now we got to go back it up.
Is your club known as the Saguaro Soldiers?
Yeah, I don't know. That was our slogan. It was kind of I think 4 or 5 years ago. Our staff was just sitting around, and we were looking at these cactuses outside my office, and we're like, "What are those?" And they're like, "Oh, they're called saguaros." And they're like, saguaro soldiers. And I was like, "All right, let's run with it." And it seemed like every team had like a theme. It's a players program and made for it, and what was it was hard edge over in football at the time, and everybody kind of had their slogan. We're like, man, let's just run with it. It probably won't pick up any steam, but then people started using it, and you're like, all right, cool.
Well, Arizona football's current slogan is "It's personal." or I think now it's evolved over time. Now I think it's Make It Personal or something like that. But it all started with This Is Personal with Jedd Fisch. And this first-round matchup of the NCAA tournament is very personal for you because not only are you playing against your alma mater, but you're playing against your brother, Luke Shields, who's the head coach of the Broncos. So what can you tell us just about that matchup and how personal it is for you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, when I saw on the selection show yesterday and saw, yes, we're hosting, and then I saw that we're playing my brother's team and my alma mater, it was some mixed emotions. I was so happy for our team and our guys, and then I'm super happy for my brother's team. I mean, in his first year at Boise State, they won the conference. I mean, they're having a dream season. They have a good team, and obviously really, really happy and supportive of him. But yeah, I think it's one of these things. It was pretty funny because at the end of it, my phone was blowing up with family members joking, and they're all coming to town, and it's kind of going to become like a family reunion. All my family, my 5 siblings, my parents, everyone's driving it or coming into town. And for Luke, I tried calling him about 2 hours later, and he was avoiding me, so I just kept texting him, "You avoiding me, man? What's going on?" And we finally connected last night. But no, it's good. I mean, it's really fun. It's really fun. You never want to go up against your brother, but at the same sense, hey, we've got work to do. Our team is really laser focused on making a deep run in the NCAA tournament, and we got a heck of a team in Boise State coming in here, and they're really hot, and we're gonna have to play well.
So, what was the Shields household like growing up with you and Luke?
Well, Luke was 2 years older than me, and so he always beat me in pretty much everything growing up until I got bigger, and then I started beating him. And but honestly, I mean, it is one of these things where Luke was always the number 1 or 2 player in the country in the juniors, and I was always traveling to play up in age divisions higher because my parents couldn't afford to send us to separate places, and so I really kind of just grew up watching my brother play, and then. When it came time for me to go to, for him to go to school, I asked him, I said, "Luke, would you mind taking a gap year? Like, I don't have anyone to practice with, to train with, no one to coach me." And he ended up taking a gap year and not going to school for a year to help me. And then, when he ended up going to school, I ended up following him to Boise State to play with him on the team there. And so, yeah, man, he's about as loyal as can be. I mean, a true friend of, the epitome of an unbelievable brother and teammate. And so yeah, man, it's bittersweet to go up against him, but I'll tell you what, he's one of the most competitive dudes ever. We'll anytime we see each other, we're competing in any game possible. So I'm sure on Friday when we play them, there's gonna be fireworks and hopefully we're not going at each other too hard.
So tennis was that one thing that really bonded you guys together. Were there any other things that you guys did together?
Well, I mean, really everything. I mean, we shared a bedroom till about 16. I mean, we did. We had 5 kids. You don't have they didn't make houses that big back then, so we had bunk beds. We shared we had a paper out together when we grew up. He would go to the right side of our house. I'd go to the left. We do our paper out in the morning. We practice together. We travel together. I mean, it has really been somebody I've been attached to the hip with, for my whole life. And then when it's got into this coaching thing, I mean. We've both been coaches for the last 15, 16 years, and we talk every single day, and we go on recruiting trips together. So it is, it's a really a blessing to have your best friend as a part of what you're doing each and every day, and then to be able to do it together is really special.
And where did you guys grow up?
We grew up in Grand Junction, Colorado.
Okay. What was life like in Grand Junction, Colorado? How would you describe it to someone from Tucson, Arizona?
Well, we didn't have any indoor courts when we were growing up. And so, as you can imagine, in the winter, it snows a lot. So anytime it would snow, Luke and I, we would be out there shoveling the snow off the court before it would freeze over. And, we basically go from our paper out to, practicing before school. And then when school was over, we would practice together again. And, it was a really good spot. I mean, I love growing up there, but it certainly wasn't that conducive for tennis. Because it's a winter haven, but we made it work. I think it certainly helped us get tougher, and as we kind of got into tennis more seriously, we traveled quite a bit more and moved to different places. But Grand Junction's a tough, hard-nosed town, and certainly it is it isn't built for tennis players for sure.
Arizona men's tennis coach Clancy Shields joining Spears and Ali on ESPN Radio. So, Coach, you played at Boise State from 2005 to 2008, and at that time, Boise State football, up-and-coming program, they had the big win in the Fiesta Bowl. What was it like being a student-athlete at Boise State during that time?
Yeah, it was awesome. I mean, I remember my first year there, we won the Fiesta Bowl against Oklahoma. And, those were a lot of the people that you lifted weights with, you rubbed shoulders with, you lived in the dorms with. I mean, Kellen Moore lived just a few doors down from us in the dorms. I mean, it was a really cool time. I mean, our football team went 50-3 while I was going to school there. And I think for us as a tennis team, and we got to 9 in the country, we were usually a top, 15 team each and every year. And so it was one of the things where we always competed with those guys, like who's the top team on campus. And they were awesome. They were fun to watch and certainly put that whole university on the map. And that's, when you talk about college athletic programs being the front porch of the university, I mean, Boise State football really put the university on the map. The enrollment, almost went up 7,000 or 8,000 people. And so it was really fun to be kind of on the ground floor of that and then to see the rise in the program, and not only the football program, but each and every program kind of rose from there. But, Boise's a special place, and it reminds me a lot of Tucson. I mean, I think Tucson, they're both college towns. They're, the people really get behind their sports teams, and certainly I see a lot of similarities between the two.
So you have the Boise State Broncos coming up on Friday, and that's a big-time matchup. But then if you win that one, you'll face Florida, Oklahoma State on Saturday. So you have big teams waiting for you on the other side. But how do you relay the message to your team to stay locked in the moment, take care of Boise State, and what's your overall message to your club going into this weekend?
Just, to have no regrets. I think to go out there and play the way you want to and play for each other and play for our seniors. And, to me, quite honestly, I mean, the last couple of weeks, I think we've really been protecting, trying to get the host side, trying to win the conference championship. And it's like, man, I just told our team, it's not that much fun trying to protect something. Let's go attack this tournament. Let's see how far we can take it, have no regrets when we're done. And certainly, I mean, we got Florida coming in here. I mean, they won the national championship 2 years ago. They have a lot of guys from that team. Their coaching staff is phenomenal. Oklahoma State's a really good team. I mean, we have a lot. It's a really tough regional, and certainly Boise State is the only thing we're thinking about right now. But if we're fortunate to get past that, we're going to have our hands full. And I think what's going to make the difference is trying to fill as many seats as we can in the Robeson Tennis Center. I mean, we are 39-1 in the last 3 years at home. I mean, that's a pretty good record. So we like our chances. But I think part of that is we have some incredible fans who've come out and supported us and made that a loud and raucous environment. And so we're inviting everybody out. It's $5 to attend. There's parking on the mall. We're gonna make this an absolute party and an unbelievable event. And really, it's the first time we've ever done it. So come be a part of history. Come help us punch our ticket to the Sweet 16. And I would love to see 1,000+ people out there.
And then Arizona wins, and all the Wildcat fans chant, "Clancy's better." Man, go ahead.
I think my record's like 6-1 coaching against Luke, so let's keep that rolling. We want to keep adding to the win column.
Clancy Shields, Arizona men's tennis head coach, joining Spears and Ali on ESPN Tucson. For the first time ever, the Arizona men's tennis program is hosting the first round of the NCAA tournament. Got Boise State on Friday and potentially Florida or Oklahoma State on Saturday, but got to take care of business on Friday. Coach, thank you so much for your time, and best of luck to you and your Wildcats this weekend.
Thank you. Appreciate it, guys. Fair enough.
Thanks, Clancy. All right, stick around. More Spears and Ali coming up next.